weaponizing your emotion to motivate you to be better at certain things is a good idea, but thinking with emotion is not ever a good idea, right? Um,
Yeah.
I think it was a mistake we made here in the U.S. back in the Vietnam era, where a big part of like basic training and stuff was teaching people to hate Vietnamese people. It's like, all right, how does that help? I mean, be a professional is what I'll say about that. Be logical, be a professional. If somebody's a threat, shoot them in the fucking face and move on with your day. You know, otherwise, we're not supposed to be animals, and if you start behaving like one, you're gonna become one.
Let's go.
Welcome to Citizen. We got a special guest today, Captain Elkana Cohen. You remember the IDF. You got a new book out. We'll get to that in a minute. But let's first get into you. Where'd you grow up?
Thank you for having me. I grew up, I born in Jerusalem, then
Mm,
my parents moved to Eilat, then they moved to a village named Merchavam, Yerucham, and then today live in Ra'anana.
mm. And let me ask you, before we get into your exploits as a military guy, I'm just very curious about how the was your parents in the military as well?
My father served in the military, but not for a long period of
Mm,
time. It was short time, yeah. And my mom, no, she didn't.
okay.
But my wife, she's serving is, by the way, while we talking, she's doing reserve right now.
Okay. And what's the like? From the outside looking in, it looks like an impossible situation to most people, to be honest. But what's your take on the relationship between uh, Israel as a country and then Gaza and the West Bank? I'm very curious, like from an Israeli perspective. We don't get a chance to talk to too many people. I'm curious what you think about it.
So I think that the situation right now is very complicated. And the reason that it's complicated is because that we have neighbors that lots of people inside the Gaza Strip wants to kill us, but we are taking care of the majority of the people who don't support that, while we have 111 hostages while we're talking still holding in captivity at the Gaza dungeons and terror tunnels.
Yeah. So, what about let's rewind a little bit to like growing up. So you've been there your whole life. How old are you?
I'm 27 years old.
27. You've been there your whole life. What was it like growing up? I mean, what was there? Did you interact with a lot of people from Gaza?
Now, usually I didn't met people from Gaza often. I think it's more people living nearby the kibbutzim. They're right next to the border, so they see a lot of people.
Mm,
I usually used to live in the south. It's Yerucham, so I live by a lot of next to a lot of Bedouins and Muslims people, but not people from Gaza. And right now I'm living in the central in Israel. I do see a lot of Arabs, not people from Gaza.
mm. What do you mean by that? Like, what type of Arab? Like, not when I don't think most Westerners know the full story, but we're talking about a place that used to be the Palestinian Mandate. Before that, it was called Transjordan. It's been a lot of things, but historically speaking, that area of the world over the last several hundred years has been inhabited by Arabs, Jews, Christians, all sorts of folks, right? Um, so when you say Arabs, who do you mean exactly? Like not people from Saudi Arabia, obviously.
No, I'm saying we have people who used to live at Jordan. Like it's all family that came from Jordan,
Mm,
I'm assuming, or some people who used to live Judah and Samaria,
yeah.
and a lot of people who living in Hebron. They came into they living right among us. So but I am also sure that there is Muslim from all over the world that they decided to come to live in Israel because Israel it's a great place for everybody to live. And I can tell you that I served with I served with Muslims. I served with Christian during the my active service, and we have quite of everyone and from every stream in Israel.
Yeah, it's interesting. I don't think most people would know that I think it's like 26% of the population of Israel is Arab, right? Now there's some Assyrian Christians. Technically, they're Arab, but they're Christian faith. But there's quite a few Jewish Arabs and quite a few Muslim Arabs that live not in Gaza or the West Bank, but actually in Israel. It's like 25 or so percent of the population. I don't know that folks know that actually. So whenever somebody, I don't know, when somebody says something like it's impossible to get these people to get along, I just don't believe that because it's happened before, right? It's not always been like this. There are certain groups of uh, Arab Muslims who have been problematic and continue to be so. And I think the like a lot of this stuff is completely incompatible with Western civilization, but it's not true that Israel kicked everybody like that. I think people believe people who are like pro-Palestine or anti-Israel or whatever believe that Israel just kicked all the Arabs out of the country, and now it's only
No,
Israeli Jews there. But that's just not the case, right?
it's not the case, and I can tell you more than that. At the Six-Day War, five countries, Arab countries, were against that. It was Egypt, was Lebanon, was Syria, Jordan, and I don't remember the fifth one, but they're always against us, and we conquered the Western. We released Jerusalem basically because it was by the hand of the Jordans. But after we brought back our land, we let most of the Jordans who got evacuated by in the during the war to go back. We offered them to come back. So it's not just during the fight we are kick them all out. It's just not true. I live next to Arabs. I have Arabs in my parts when I'm going from all over. So it's not true,
Yeah.
first of all. And second of all, we can see Arabs in main and Muslims. When I'm saying Arabs, I mean Muslim. We can
Hmm.
see Muslim in main position in hospitals, in main positions, in politics. In they basically they're integrated into our system in everywhere.
Mm.
So we live together definitely.
Yeah. Yeah, and which is not true for Palestinians, so-called Palestinians, everywhere else in the world other than Gaza or the West Bank. For example, the majority of Muslim countries have kicked them out, right? Like Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, they kicked everybody, all the Palestinians out. Jordan and Syria and Lebanon, I think mostly Jordan and Lebanon still have some, but they can't. What you're talking about is people holding professional positions, like doctors and lawyers and things like that. In Jordan and in Lebanon, Palestinian people cannot be doctors and they cannot be lawyers. They are like all the things that people say that Israel is doing to the Palestinians, Jordan and Lebanon are actually doing to the Palestinians. You can make your mind up about why or whatever the hell, because I don't really care one way or the other. But it is very interesting how it's interesting
I
how
think,
easy it is for people to just blame Israel for everything. It's
yeah,
very bizarre to me. Like the world is a big place, and there's a lot of assholes running around. Trying to blame everything on one small country in the Middle East seems kind of weird to me.
sometimes it's easier for people to blame it on Israel, but to be honest, I think the Muslims who live in Israel get the most of rights instead of every other country
Mm.
surrounding us. You know, I heard people says gays for Palestine, and it just it's just weird because they hanging gays over
Yeah.
roof, and 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 here in Israel, I don't know if you ever you were here, but in Tel Aviv, you can go to the Pride march, and you can be
Mm.
part of that. So when people supporting Palestine and they see free Palestine, what are they actually mean? Are they if they and I always says that if people actually care about the Palestinians, I would love to go and talk to them and to share my experience as a combat soldier in the field, what we doing and what we got exposed through that experience, and they will realize that we doing much more than the Hamas doing for his own people,
Mm.
which is unbelievable.
Yeah, I wonder. I don't know how much insight you have into this, since I mean you're a captain in the military. It's not like you're a diplomat or anything. But I'm wondering about why it is that the people in Gaza, especially West Bank's another situation, but why the people in Gaza, especially, haven't kicked Hamas the fuck out. Like I don't I know Iran gives them a lot of money. I know that Qatar gives them a lot of money, or maybe they did before we clipped the leader up there not too long ago. But so I know they have a lot of resources and stuff like that. But it seems like if I were, and to compare it to something maybe more practical for our audience, if you were living in an inner city and there was gang activity there, you might try to do something to get the gangs out there so the cops will stop coming and fucking up your neighborhood. You know what I mean? Instead of just blaming police, it seems odd to me that we would do that. What's your take on that? Why aren't ordinary Gazan citizens fucking these people up and sending them back home?
I think the reason that the ordinary people in Gaza don't take Hamas out of the equation, it's because most of them unfortunately support them. And we can see there by the education systems that goes around. You can, if you go through school at the Gaza Strip, you can see that what they're educating for is to hate Jews, murder people. And I know it sounds weird, but babies being teach to murder. You can see notebooks and books that preach to slaughter Jewish people. So this is what they raised through their childhood, and slowly, it's get to their society, and everyone support Hamas because since they were born, they're getting preached by their imams and by their all their leaders to support such a thing. And when I went through the houses in Gaza, most of them had a mortar pictures inside their houses, and the majority of the houses had bombs and rifles, AK-47 under, even baby kids, after behind their baby beds, they had rifles and grenade, and it was unbelievable. So I think this is what they educating for.
So how do you think you deal with something like that? I mean, it seems like an untenable position, both logistically, security wise, and with regard to like international politics and optics, to just keep people fenced in for another 100 years, right? Like you can't just put a fence around Gaza and keep people trapped there for 100 years because there's assholes there. There's got to be a better solution to that. And to be fair, to your point, a big part of that solution, if not the biggest part, is to stop teaching kids to hate people, right? I mean, that seems like a good place to start. But that, like, the Israelis can't force them to do that. Obviously, you can't force people to think some way or another. Um, I think the way it's worked really well, and we're seeing it in Saudi Arabia, by the way. A lot of people have been very critical of MBS, Mohammed bin Salman, for some amount of time now. But he's, from my perspective, including him trying to get involved in the Abraham Accords, he's been really trying to drag that country into modernity a little bit and have them stop with it. Because that's another place where I think 80% of the primary schools are Wahhabist nonsense. It's madrasas, right? They're just teaching crazy death to America, death to Israel bullshit. Um, and he's trying to do international sports deals and all this other stuff to modernize his country. I wonder if there isn't some way to do. And the problem that I've seen, and I'd like your perspective on this, with doing that in Gaza, is that if you invest economically there, it often just gets turned into rockets.
Yeah, so I think your question is a right question, but the answer can be a bit of it is a very complex to answer that. And the reason it's because we don't war, but we have to defend ourselves. Look, I'm a newlywed and I'm an expecting father. The last thing that I want to do is to participate in war. And on October 7, I found me and my wife both getting called in order to defend our country. But this is the last thing that we would like to do. We would like to have a boring life. So according to your question, if we have an opportunity to stop that, we will. But as long as people wants to kill me, I would have to fight them. I cannot educate someone who decided one day to wake up and slaughtered babies.
Mm.
It just can be new educate. You can educate someone who breach into your border and decided to kill and slaughter people who went to festival music. So regarding to that, we need to make sure that those people would not be able to do such a thing ever again, and they need to be punished and even killed. I need to say it out loud. I think those people who killed my brother and sister supposed to go to justice.
Mm.
But I'm putting them aside. After we're making sure that Hamas being destroyed, the next step that we have to do is to make sure that we don't let those people to educate the new generation. And if so, I hope that one day they will realize that the peace is much more it's something it is win-win situation for them, because if you're looking at Tel Aviv, if you're going to Tel Aviv, you can see lovely resorts, you can see all the high-tech company, and they have the same opportunities, but they just decided to invest every penny that they had in order to build terror infrastructure, so, or terror tunnels, or everything you can think about. So I think that the first thing that we need to do is to illuminate this threat, to make sure that we're not gonna be able to see that situation happen ever again, to bring our hostages back, because this is a breaking deal. We can't have any treatment without bring our brother and
Mm.
sister back into their families, and to bury the loved one that getting murdered in captivity.
Yeah.
So after we're gonna do that things, we're gonna be able to talk about the rest. But until then, we just need to make sure that they won't slaughter our brother and sister.
I agree with that. I mean, Hamas has got to go, like not somewhere else, but off the face of the earth. I agree with that. But what would you say to somebody who is just a person living in Gaza, not related to Hamas, and their family members have been killed by Israeli airstrikes? Because that's, I mean, from you got to put yourself into their position. From their perspective, it's you who's killed, not you specifically, but Israel who's killed their family member. So why don't they then have the idea that they should go take Israel out because they're an existential threat to them? You know what I mean? I mean, I'm just
I'll tell
like
you.
for devil's
I'll
advocate.
tell you why.
Hmm?
I'll tell you why. Because if in your neighbor there is a gang, as you just mentioned before, my my responsibility as a community is to condemn that gang, and to make sure that that gang not going to do any crime in my neighborhood, because otherwise it's gonna you know that that we will be more people in your neighborhood that probably will die from gang fight, even though they didn't care about it, they didn't mean to kill you. So what's happening right now, it's Hamas using them as a human shield. And I know it's terrible, and soon I'm going to tell you a story that probably will shock you.
Hmm?
But before I'm going to do that, I think it's important to realize that we can control what they need to do. I can, first of all, don't be there and don't control the area, because when we're putting an IDF force in the Gaza Strip, people condemn us. You don't need to control them with army. That you need to give them a, people say that you need to give them a liberty.
Hmm.
But then when you're giving them liberty, you can ask the Israel why you let those people and Hamas to raise there and to be and control the area. We can do both at the same time, and the people who live there should make sure that they not do any crime and not shooting missiles from neighborhood, because otherwise we have to defend our people and to make sure that Hamas terror get died basically. But I'm telling you more than that. We do as much as we can in order to avoid any casualties, and unfortunately we are at war, and sometimes we heard that we have casualties, and every time when I hear that, it's sad. That truly, I'm telling you, I'm trying. I did everything in my efforts in order to avoid everything, but it's complicated situation. And when we know that they are shooting from hospitals, what me as a soldier should do?
Yeah.
If someone will shoot at you right now, but behind them there is a civilian, what would you do?
Oh, I've been
That
there, brother. I've been to her. I spent time with the 82nd Airborne in Iraq. I've been in that situation before. And look, it's like I'm not. I'll give the benefit of the doubt to anybody until it's time to fight. Right at that point, you're just getting fucked up if you're in my way, frankly. The problem, but that's me as a gunfighter on the ground. I have no problem with that because I was in the infantry. we go out and get into gunfights and kill people, and that is what it is. I do take issue with dropping bombs on city blocks. I don't care who's over there, if it's Hamas or somebody else. Now, if there's an active rocket site, you got to blow that thing up. There's no other way to handle that. That's just how it is. Um, but
I'll tell you what's the problem. The
okay,
problem is Hamas target using the, let's call they're using mosque, they're using hospitals, they're using schools in order to build their bases over there. So if we're not gonna react because they using hospitals, mosques, and etc., as their bases, we basically saying to them, you can freely work, and we will not do anything. Otherwise, we paralyzed, and it's a problem situation. But we can't let those people use schools in order to shoot us, and then we're gonna say, sorry, it's school. We're not acting. We're not operating here. But I can tell you what we are doing. We messaging everyone on the area, and we tell them to leave the schools. If I know it's a school that, for example, one of the school full with terrorists and they shooting at us. So we make sure that everyone in the area know before that we're going to attack that there is upcoming airstrike, and they need to all get away. And we can do more than that. And even there, when we see civilians inside the school, even that we noticed everybody before, most of the time they delay the attack. But I'm telling you, we do as much as we can.
yeah. I mean, they certainly, these folks uh, uh, will weaponize your empathy against you, certainly, right? So my guys were securing an election site during the first Iraqi elections, and or no, I'm sorry, it was during the second Iraqi elections, and um, inside of the cordon, this retarded like lady with Down syndrome or some shit, retarded lady, walks in holding a baby, walks into the middle of the election center, and then boom, blows up, right? Because nobody would think to do that. Like, what kind of monster would put a bomb on a retarded person with a baby? You know what I mean? Well, we know what kind of monster would do that. Um, and it's, I think it's something that people should take into consideration. It's not easy on the ground. Like, I don't judge the individual warfighter for stuff that happens on the ground unless they're completely negligent. Because I've been there before. I've been in situations where, you know, it's a very frequently just a split second to decide if somebody is a threat or not. And it's one thing to put your own life at risk, but people like us are very uncomfortable putting our men's life at risk, right? Like especially you as a captain, I don't know how. I actually don't know much about the infrastructure of the IDF, but as a captain, I would imagine you're a company commander, right?
Yeah.
And you're in
So
charge of
I'll
you're
tell
in
you.
charge of like
So I'll
120
tell you.
people.
Yeah, yeah. At that war, I'll soon explain what was my position because it was a little bit different.
Okay.
But I'm just saying that yeah, it's by seconds. You need to make a call,
Mm,
and sometime you don't have you don't have the entire information. But in order to judge and to make the right decision. But I can tell you that I want to share one story as I
yeah, sure.
mentioned before. One of the time we got an intelligence on a school that were full with infrastructure they used for terror, and they also was full with Hamas. And we knew that we need to conquer that place, but we also knew that that school were full with civilians. So as we always do, we start calling them all out, but no one left the school. So we used the drone in order to realize why are they not leaving that school, and we saw there is Hamas guard. They don't let those people to run away or to get out from the school. And one of the kids tried to run away, and the Hamas guard shot him in his head and killed him in front of his mom. And later on, the one of the Hamas guy went on the rooftop, and he was holding a baby just like that. He was holding a baby just in front of us, and behind them was a guy holding a camera. That just holding for. He was waiting for us to take that shot, and filming that shot. And the reason why we didn't took that shot is not because we were afraid about that camera guy, because he could have got he could have got a bullet into his camera. But the reason why we didn't take that shot because we are raised on a different value, and we
Mm,
don't kill babies, and we waited with that, even though all the Hamas there, all the terrorists there knew exactly where we were, and every second's better at that time. and they could used RPG and shooting at us, but we didn't. We waited with that. And a couple of moments later, the same Hamas guard went on the rooftop again. He was surrounded by a group of women. One of them banged a little bit, and this was enough for our sniper. He took the shot, and we were able to illuminate the threat and to let all the Palestinian go out from that school. The reason why I'm sharing that experience is to let people to realize what huge dilemma you get across the fight. It's rather you or that little baby.
Hmm.
And I'm telling you, we always choose that little baby before us. So when people trying to condemn us, it just for me it sounds outrageous because I put my friends on the line, life on the line, while we took care of that baby. And unfortunately, we also need to remember that during war, you walk with I don't know if with sense, not with emotion.
Hmm.
Because when you
Logic.
go through
Yeah.
emotion, yeah, you go with logic. Because every time it's hard about every civilians who died. I'm telling you, I it's something that I'm truly thinking about. But we need to realize that in wars, it's not the emotion that we're acting by, it's the logic. And if by let's say if we call I think it's any army have it. It's a collateral damage, I think
Yeah. Yeah.
how it's
Collateral
called.
damage. Yeah.
Yeah. So if they're shooting at us and they putting 20 soldier at risk, we have to take that shot because they're gonna kill us.
Mm.
And we're trying as much as we can in order to avoid that civilians. But if somehow he getting to the line between him and by the way, if we will see it on if just if we run towards us, it will be. But if we'll see him stand in one position, we won't take that shot. So it's always hard, and but we're trying to do as much as we can. And for me, I can tell you, we were 100% succeed with that. And some other places they didn't succeed. But I don't think this is the point to be concentrated about. It's the thing that we need to ask us if we're doing as much as we can in order to avoid that, while we're still remembering that we're fighting for our brother and sister that's still in captivity. And once they're gonna be with their families, all that thing will be gone. We're fighting right now to bring our brother and sister, and this is our main cause. So this is what I have to say about that.
Yeah. I agree. Um, a lot of people make the mistake of confusing the government policy with the individual soldier as well, which is always a mistake, right? I mean, it's just like it's like going into a department store, a big chain store, and yelling at the person that's making like $12 an hour. It's like I don't make the rules, dude. I just kind of work here. You know what I mean? If the individual does something stupid, that's one thing, but the overall policy of war fighting is usually out of the hands of the individual warfighter. I felt that myself, unfortunately. Let's get back into your specific story. So, what were you doing before October 7th of last year? I assume you were already in the military, but what were you doing? Were you reserve? Were you active already, or what happened? What was that?
So I'm a reserve duty. I finished my active service almost 6 years ago, and on October 7, before October 7, as I just mentioned, I'm newlywed, expecting father, student for real estate and evaluation. I'm a trainer, group trainer, and training for the IDF as well. And above all of that, I love my country. And on October 7, it was a holiday. It was Simchat Torah, and we slept in our in-laws. And my wife, 5:30 in the morning, hour before everything started, she woke me up. She was terrified. She had a nightmare, and she told me that in her nightmare, hundreds of terrorists were chasing us. And for some reason, I couldn't use my gun, and it didn't work. I'm usually walk with a gun,
Mm.
with a pistol, not with a gun, and I couldn't use my pistol in order to defend herself. And I hugged her back. I told her, Shiran, don't worry, everything is fine. And we both went back to sleep. An hour later, I was awakened by the siren of the Iron Dome system, and I heard all the explosion. And I was surrounded by Shiran's entire family. And the reason why, because we slept in their bomb shelter. And for the viewers and listeners, they don't know, in Israel, almost every house have a bomb shelter because of the crazy situation that we're living. So I went back to sleep a little bit, and then I woke up again and I ran into my house because I realized that during holidays to hear the Iron Dome system activated, it's mean that something happened. And I ran into my house, and as an observed Jew, I mean, usually I'm not using my phone, but I opened my phone. I'm called my commander, my all commander, and I asked them if anything happened. And he told me that something happening in the south. They don't know exactly what happened. He told me, prepare your stuff and get ready. And while me preparing my stuff and hanging up the phone call, I get another phone call of my friends, Gabi from my unit, who tell me that me and my wife, Shiran, got called up as well. Shiran, I met my wife in my unit.
Hmm.
My unit is Duvdevan. And for those who watched Fauda, the theory on Netflix, Fauda is based on my unit. So we both served in Duvdevan, and we we packed our stuff and we went back to my unit. But you asked me before how much soldiers I have under my custody. Uh, so usually commander captains in the IDF have around 120
Mm.
soldiers. It's a company, but I have a I have different job in my reserve duty. Usually, I'm in charge of all the training course
Hmm.
to the elite unit, so I'm not positioned in a combat unit that time. So I decided to join my old team from my active service, the one that I did my training course with, and to join as a regular soldier. Even though that I'm officer and I got an offer to be in different position during the combat, I decided to participate as a as a combat fighter
Hmm.
and to join them. So yes, I'm an officer, I'm a captain, and I have different responsibilities during normal time. But right now, I join to my old team that I used to serve in.
And that's Unit 217, I think.
217,
Yeah.
yeah.
And you guys do, like, there's a direct action component, but you guys do a lot of counter surveillance and things like that as well, right? It's not just getting into gunfights and stuff. It's quite a bit more. I guess in normal times, it's quite a bit more on the how would I put this?
Usually, what we do, we are getting into places with high risk of
Like
terror.
non permissive environment specialist, I guess is probably
Yeah,
what we would call that.
we're getting with undercover,
Mm-hmm.
look like Arab Muslims
Mm-hmm.
and Muslims Arabs, and we're going into there. We just doing a little operation while we taking with the terrorists that we know that meant to do a terror attack. We kidnap him overnight, over day, depending on the time, and then we do it quietly as we can. You know, if there is a gunshot, it's mean that we are already in a situation that we didn't want it
Mm-hmm.
from the first place. It happens a lot because sometimes, the environment reacts very fast, but most of the time we're trying to do that quietly as we can. And it's very different than war. In war, you're very loud, you're very aggressive, but during that operation, it should be quiet and very quick.
Yeah. How did you get involved in that particular unit? Do you like did you speak Arabic or something, or how did you get selected for
So
that? I guess.
So we have our it's you have tests for that. You have physical test, mental test, language test. You have multiple
Mm-hmm.
tests in order to get into that unit. Not everyone can get it, of course, and that's it. I'm really proud with the unit. It's an amazing unit.
Um, did you and your wife was in this unit? Your but not that she wasn't your wife then. I guess
No,
you
she
guys
wasn't.
actually met there.
Yeah,
That's pretty serious. That's a good place to meet a wife, I suppose, right?
yeah. It's amazing to know that your wife such an amazing wife,
Hmm.
and she has such a lot of courage. It's amazing.
Yeah. So, you served in 217 back in the day. You said 6 years ago is when you discharged from active service. And then since you've been a
Yeah,
reservist and you're primarily responsible for when you go back, you're doing training and stuff like that, right?
yeah.
And then you get
I'm doing all of that tests to get into my unit and to other
like
units.
selection, right? That's what we call it,
Yeah.
selection. Okay.
All
So
right,
you
great.
would be like a cadre, I guess I think is what we refer to those as. Okay. So you're doing selection processes and things like that. Then you get called up after October 7th. What happens then?
So me and my wife, we are getting into my unit, and during that time, I'm getting another phone call of my friends from my old team who ask me and call me Elkana. They most of them call me Kuno, and he called me Kuno, and we are just getting called all of our old team,
Mm-hmm.
and we really would like you to join us. And no question, no hesitation. I love my team, and of course I will come with them. So we 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 went through a different division, also reserve of the Commando Elite unit. All of them, they're from my unit, but we have some brigade that build up from different units.
Mm-hmm.
So we were stationed at that brigade, and then 3 weeks later, after the breach happened, the IDF went into the grounded maneuver, and we were the first one to enter the Gaza Strip.
And what was the fighting like there? I mean, it seems so. Sometimes after a big event, the cockroaches will scatter. Everybody goes like it's not like people get online and start trying to fight you. You know what I mean? It was a big problem we had in Iraq. People would hide amongst the population. They would hide in mosques, schools, whatever, right? And then pop out, take a couple of shots at you, and run away. It was a very difficult war to fight for that reason. Like most of the time throughout human history, wars have been fought head on, right? Like one line of troops versus another line of troops. And over the last 120 years or so, it's gotten quite a bit different, I guess, starting kind of in the late part of the 19th century. But um, this, what if you maybe call it an insurgency or guerrilla warfare, is kind of the standard for that region of the world, to be honest. So it's difficult fighting.
It's very difficult fighting, and the reason why is because you always need to be aware and you always need to be ready. But you need to be ready, but as you just mentioned, it's not face-to-face fight. So we are advancing, and they hiding in terror tunnels, and they pop out one of couple of hours. They do some gunshot, and then they going and hiding again. But the first 2 weeks were very hard. First of all, the first 2 weeks with equipment, you don't take your equipment. It's not easy. But beside that, at the first week, we didn't saw any enemy. They were just jumping off one house, shooting at you, and then go down. And it was very hard to maintain I don't know, focus and be ready and prepared. And after the first 2 weeks, when we conquered Bet Hanun, it's a one place. We went to different places, and then we saw more people and more terrorists, and it became very very complicated. And the reason why is because after 50 days of war, I think there were a ceasefire while they brought back some of the hostages. But when we went back, we realized that Hamas uh, changed the way of fighting, or adapted, or just changed the way a little bit. What they basically did, it was they were spreading bombs and weapons all over the buildings, and then they were walking like a civilians with a plastic bag at the street. They getting into one building, they taking the RPG, the heating RPG, shooting at us. They leaving the house as again as a citizen who just went to look for his food. and this has became very hard fight. And the problem with that, that the Hamas basically force you to suspicious every citizen. Because one time we saw a crippled guy on a wheelchair miraculously became a terrorist and holding an AK-47. Like I just saw you, people were dragging you on a wheelchair, and then suddenly you woke up and use RPG and AK, you're starting and shooting at us. It is crazy. One of the time, a woman approached us. She hold our hands up like she's begging for mercy, and suddenly she took up from his for her dress an AK-47
Mm.
and start shooting at us. And one of the company next to us killed her. And then we realized it was a man and dressed like woman with a wig. So
Oh
I'm just,
boy,
crazy
boy.
situation.
So you guys are fighting through the city. How far in did you make it? I mean, there's been a couple of different phases of the war. Are you still fighting now, or are you done for now?
So I done with the Gaza for
Mm.
now. I just came while we I just came back. I think last 2 weeks ago. I just came back from a defense combat at the Lebanon border, which is also crazy what's
Mm.
going on over there. And for now, I'm on a break. I'm always ready to get called and to protect my people. This is why I'm here. But I love this break. And
Yeah, I
believe me
bet.
or not, I would like to stay with my wife more time.
Yeah, you say you got a kid on the way. How far out is it?
4 months.
4 months. So you're wait, she's 4 months pregnant, or it's 4 months until the baby's
No,
born?
she's 5 months pregnant.
Oh wow, good. And what do you think? Like, what are some of the I guess lessons you've learned from this? Because war is a very difficult time, and when you're in the middle of it, it can be um, it's very easy to lose your sense of humanity in warfare, especially when you're fighting folks who do horrible things like hide behind children and shit like that. Frankly, I'm curious, like, what do you think has did you get into a lot of active combat earlier in your career? That would have been mostly like kidnapping and surveillance and stuff like that. Now being like a frontline gunfighter, it's quite a bit different, right?
Yeah, it's different. I had gunshot like a gunfight before,
Mm.
but nothing like that. I ever I never been next to, even when the Air Force acting next to you and they dropping bomb 300 meters away, and you hear all the explosion and you hear the booby traps activated, and unfortunately lose uh, lots of my friends. I have 26 friends that I knew that died or got murdered on October 7th. So unfortunately, I lost a lot of friends during that war. But if you ask me what I learned, I think I'll start by saying that before we entered the Gaza Strip, one of my friends told me that what he wants is to go back from this war closest to what is right now. Like he wants to become himself after this war. I think this is something that I tried with me, and by saying that I mean that every time that you look and you are involved with places, there is death and it's hard. It's some of the people are getting stuck into that. I don't know if I can say that. They're looking at the bodies.
Mm-hmm.
They want to realize what's happened. And every time we always try to be professional and to make sure we took that shot, all right? But now we not put any efforts of any extra efforts
Mm.
of by searching what's left from the people. Like I'm trying to be clean as I can. Can I say it?
Mm.
I know it sounds for some of the people maybe terrible, but this is like for me. I knew I can't deal with the death for also as well with my own people. It's like something that we try to avoid as much as we can.
You yeah, I mean it doesn't I think it dehumanizes you more than it does the enemy when you behave like an animal. Frankly, um, there's certainly part of it that there's like weaponizing your emotion to motivate you to be better at certain things is a good idea, but thinking with emotion is not ever a good idea, right? Um,
Yeah.
I think it was a mistake we made here in the U.S. back in the Vietnam era, where a big part of like basic training and stuff was teaching people to hate Vietnamese people. It's like, all right, how does that help? I mean, be a professional is what I'll say about that. Be logical, be a professional. If somebody's a threat, shoot them in the fucking face and move on with your day. You know, otherwise, we're not supposed to be animals, and if you start behaving like one, you're going to become one. That's what I think. I think there's a story in the book about you. Um, just the grisly nature of war and having a problem eating meat or something like that. I kind of remember that. I don't know. I read it a couple weeks ago, so I don't remember exactly everything now. But um, that sounds weird. Can you tell that story?
Yeah, so unfortunately, we got across through a lot of bodies and not in the nicest way of seeing them. And after a couple of weeks or days, every time when I ate meat, I had a taste of human flesh in my mouth, and it made me throw up, and I couldn't eat meat anymore. And thanks God, I don't have it anymore because it was awful. I'm telling you, I'm not wishing that to anyone.
Mm-hmm.
It was actually it's just a psychological thing, but it's changing all of your way of thinking, and I don't, yeah, I'm not wishing it to anyone. But I think what we try to do, as you mentioned before, is to be professional.
Mm-hmm.
And by saying that, no anger involved and no over, if you see someone that overwhelmed or something, you don't let this guy to participate these current fight, because we need to be professional. We need to take the shot because we need to take the shot, nothing else. We're not There is no anger inside that. There is no, even though there is, but you're putting it aside.
Mm-hmm.
You always remember that 1,200 people were murdered on October 7 and 251 people were kidnapped. And if we're putting it in terms of the US, it means that 36,000 were murdered that day, and 700, 500 people, 7,500 people were kidnapped. It's huge number that people cannot even imagine. So yeah, there is anger, but we're putting it aside, and while we fighting, it's totally a professional fight, and we're trying to be and we are a human who wants to go back to their normal life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, just wife and kids, so on and so forth. I think that's true of most people, and I think when you see things like even I would say even Hamas, Houthi, Hezbollah, all these people, they prey on young and middle-aged men who don't have families a lot, right? I don't. I'm sure. I'm curious if you see this in your fighting as well, but there was a point in Iraq where we weren't fighting like soldiers anymore. It was young people who were getting paid by somebody to just go out and plant bombs in the road or do some other bullshit. But they weren't true believers or anything. They weren't like devout Muslims. They were just idiots. They would have been criminals in any other life. But instead, and it's always seemed to me to be like kind of the same attitude as a gang member here in the United States. They just don't have any education. They don't have any job opportunity or anything like that. They're like, so they're just going to go this. They want to find some purpose in their life. So why not this? Let's just go fight Israel, right?
I know, but I think this is the problem. It's not that they don't have education. Their education is to fight Israel.
Sure.
This
Okay.
is the whole difference. It's not just poor people. They are poor, but I'm not saying they're not just like poor people. They don't have anything in life. Everything that they have in life, they invest in terror. If you saw the video while Hania getting noticed of his sons died in the airstrike, he just started smiling. He said, "All right, they all will be shahid." I don't know
Mm.
how you said in English as well. You say shahid as well.
No, there's
They're gonna
the
be martyrs.
martyred.
They're gonna
Yeah,
be
yeah,
martyred.
yeah.
So he smiled for her. I think any normal human being would cry that moment while he figuring that his sons and his children died. And for them, they made the death as a holy things that they're looking for. And this is what they, it's crazy. You can see moms sending their kids to die, because while you're sending kids with a bomb, what are you expecting for me to do?
Yeah, yeah.
And but the mom sending it with a bomb. They sending with RPG. And this is the mom. It's not it's not someone who paid them off. It's their mom, their families. And yes, of course, there is lots of money involved in that. And but this is the entire community that preach in order to fight against Israel, while they can preach to have a good life, to have uh, to go to the beaches,
Hmm.
to thrive with their families, and they can do so many things. If you go through Israel, you can see so many high-tech companies, so much great resorts, nicest place to walk in, and it is amazing. And then you're asking yourself, why aren't they do the same? And I don't have any question for that.
Yeah, I
I'm
mean
telling
it's
you,
it's definitely the education part. I mean it's the same thing with Saudi Arabia. All the other countries in the Middle East, for the most part, other than some parts of Lebanon are still jacked up, but Lebanon, Syria, the two Palestinian areas, and 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 parts of Saudi Arabia. I mean, you don't see even Iranian citizens don't participate in this shit that much. I think they hate their government. Frankly, I don't think they like their government at all. But and then Yemen as well. It's like poor places, but Qatar, UAE, Bahrain, Saudi Arabia is starting to turn around. Kuwait is nice. There's so many in Jordan as well. There's like so many nice Arab countries at this point where if I don't understand why they want to be the last Arab uh, group to just be assholes about everything all the time. Like, just go get a job, man,
yeah,
and work
definitely.
and shit, and see if you can make a good life for yourself. Why? I don't understand why they're so captured. I guess I do, to some degree. I mean, um, whether
They
it's
just hate us.
yeah, whether it's reality or not, they're just taught to hate people from a very young age. Um, uh,
But you
yeah.
asked me later on, before a couple of minutes, you asked me about the solution.
Mm,
I think you just mentioned there is lots of successful Arab countries, and it's the easiest thing to blame Israel for everything. But everyone forget that next to the Gaza border with Israel, we have a Gaza border with Egypt. And I think that Egypt should be part of it. It's not just Israel. They can take some of the people and start to see what are they doing. But the reason why there is no Arab country who wants the Palestinian in their country, because they know exactly as we know that most of them are just wants death. They just supporting to murder people. They don't want them in their country. And this is the reason why they saying they protest against us, against Israel, but they don't care and they don't do anything from their side. They just funding money and they sending money to the Palestinians,
mm.
but nothing more than that. I want to see Arab countries said, all right, you know what? I'm giving, let's say, 100,000 citizenships to the first 100,000 Palestinians that would like to join my country. But
Mm.
we don't see that kind of thing happening.
No, the opposite of
They
that, actually. They,
all,
they kicked all of the
yeah,
Palestinians out of their countries, including
of
Egypt, by the way,
course,
who refuses to take one refugee. They won't take one.
yeah, of course. So it's easier for them to push all their Palestinians away and then to blame Israel for what we doing for, and we doing that for a right cause. They don't have the right cause to do that. We just got 1,200 people were slaughtered. They supporting our death. What is your reason, the rest of the Arab country, that you're not allowed to get some of that Palestinians
Mm.
at your country? This is the question that we should ask.
I think it's a fair question. I mean, I look, I've been in war myself quite a bit, so if I'm antagonistic towards governments generally because I think governments often are filled with assholes that are just power hungry and greedy people. To be honest, I'm not a fan of government, but And I will be critical of any government when I think they're doing something stupid. I don't think the Israeli government has done a great job of managing Hamas over the last, let's say, 20 years, frankly. But that doesn't change the situation on the ground. Like you can sit and have a political discussion about what should and shouldn't be, but for the soldier on the ground, it's like the terms are very clear. It's like I'm either going to live or die here, right?
Yeah, but I'm also think that it's important to remember that even if Israel didn't act right during that period of time, during the last couple of years, but still the blame is on Hamas, not on the Israel government, because you can blame an adult for his own action.
Mm-hmm.
You can blame people who decided to breach our border and slaughter people.
Yeah, I agree
You
with
can
that.
you can
Yeah,
put it
yeah.
on the Israeli government, and unfortunately, some of the people are trying to put it on the Israeli government while it's the only blame of Hamas.
Yeah.
This is the people who decided that day to go breach our border and slaughter babies, which I'm telling you that they were bragging, they was bragged about that themselves. They uploaded, they posted. So now now people saying Hamas didn't did that at all. Well, they upload that into their networks and Facebook Live and
Mm.
YouTube Live and everything. So the only person who in charge is the person who take action, and they took the action that day. And of course, we need to do something as the adults, but they are the adults as well.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, there's nothing anybody could do to me that would make me kill a bunch of babies or even kill 300 people at a music festival who had nothing to do with it, right? That's just terrorism. I mean, there's no. Uh, Good God, man. I mean, I just that line of reasoning is completely foreign to me. I don't understand that, frankly. Like, if you want to become a soldier and kill other soldiers, then go for it, man. I mean, that's your right as a citizen of some country to do that, I guess. Don't complain when you get killed, right? Because that's how it works. It's a two-way firing range. You don't have the right to shoot at somebody without being shot back at. But the idea that you can, because of your grievances, go kill a bunch of innocent people is fucked up. Uh,
Yeah,
and it just can't be tolerated, right? That kind of shit can't be tolerated. I don't have a problem with Israel smashing in Hamas's dick holes, frankly. Like I don't care what, like, it's not my country, right? I think people should care about their own country a lot. They should care enough about their own country to fight for it to the death if they have to. Um, but we have things in common, right? Like, that's something that I think warriors should have in common. We should know to an absolute fact that I'm going to fight for my country no matter what, and you should know that about me, right? We should know that about each
yeah,
other. It's just
definitely.
like that. That's where the mutual respect has come from over the years, right? For all of human history, warriors have respected each other. I don't respect people who parachute into a fucking music festival and kill a bunch of unarmed people. That's bullshit.
Yeah, definitely. And you mentioned something before about this is the our fight. I'm agree with that, but it's also important to mention that I think this is not just the Israel fight because as you can see, it's not just Gaza, it's the entire Middle East.
Mm.
And the entire Middle East mentioned while they shouting death to Israel, they shouting as well death to United States and they shouting death to the West. And we saw that. By the way, when we went to the Gaza Strip, I saw Mein Kampf books, the Hitler's books, uh, side by side with Iranians' weapons, and you can see that Iran funding them, and they shouting death to America, they shouting death to Israel. This is all against the West culture.
Mm.
So after in their perspective, after they will be able to win us, which they don't, but let's say
Mm.
for the example, they will go for their next target, and it will be the same in the US. It will be the same in everywhere. And I think this is something very important for people to realize. It's not our fight. It is right now because this is on our border, but they mean to fight against all the West, not just Israel. And you can see that from their while they screaming in on their grief. For example, at the Ania when when how to say when they bury Ania,
I'm not sure.
doesn't matter. But I'm saying they shouting. death to America
Mm-hmm.
side by side with death to Israel. It's the same point for their perspective.
Well, they're welcome to come here and try, and I'll shoot them in their fucking face. And I'll sleep like a fucking baby, and not like a baby. That's a bad saying. People say sleep like a baby, but you're about to find out that babies don't actually sleep ever. They keep your ass up all night. Well, look, thanks for coming today, man. I appreciate the conversation. Tell everybody where they can find your book. It's called October 7th.
October 7, The War Against Hamas Through the Eyes of an Israeli Commando Officer. And you can search it on Amazon by the name October 7. Or if you want more details about my book, you can get into my site, which is Elkana, Elkana dash Cohen, Cohen.com. It's my name in the Zoom as well, so you can look at my Zoom. And if you want my Instagram to be, and I will be more happy to talk with you. It is Elkana underscore Kuno. Kuno, it's Kuno.
Well, thanks, man. I appreciate it. Good luck with the baby. Stay safe out there. If you have to go back and fight some more, I appreciate your time.
Thank you. And I also want to say thank you for all the people who are supporting us. It's mean a lot. And I can tell you that I had, during my active service, I had a training with the Marines, and it was very, very nice. And since then, I remember, and I think the bond between Israel and the United States is very important. And I'm just want to say thank you for everyone who's supporting us.
Yes, sir.
And
And
thank you.
thank you all for listening. This has been Citizen.